Good afternoon, everybody. We've got a lot of people registered today. So we're just gonna give it just a moment before we get started.
Good afternoon, everyone.
But whilst we do wait for everybody to filter in, feel free to jump in the chat and say hi and maybe where you're from.
Absolutely. Hi, Elisa.
I like that. People are waving already. So we're in. Nice to see you too. West Wales. Welcome, Nia.
We're in West Wales today as well, Nia.
Yeah.
Oh, Cheryl, I bet you've got much nicer weather than we've got today.
Florida. Wow, that's okay. That is lovely. Sunny Bath, love that. London, welcome. We do love chat box interaction.
We do.
It makes us feel like people are really here.
So, Nia, we're working with one of our clients. So we're working with Bluestone. So we're actually in one of the Bluestone lodges right now, which is really lovely. We feel very lucky. No problem, Helen. You don't need to speak, so it's totally fine.
Howdy from Alberta. Wow, welcome.
Howdy, Jennifer. Anglesey, love Anglesey as well, Natasha. Gorgeous.
Love it. Wonderful. Okay, so people will still be filtering in the next few minutes. So we may as well get started, shall we, Leah?
I would say let's get started.
Perfect. Okay. So before I get started, this session is being recorded and we do send out the recording. So if at any point you did need to shoot off because there was something, then you won't miss a thing. We'll send it to you later. Or alternatively, if you wanted to recap on anything that we've covered, then you'll be able to watch it back in double speed later on. So welcome everybody to our March People Lunch and Learn on Resilient Leadership. But before I hand over to Leanne, we have a quick BEAM update. So one thing we've noticed working with HR and L&D teams is that wellbeing support often becomes reactive. A session here, a workshop there, but no real structure across the year. And the problem with that is it creates more work for HR. Because you're consistently sourcing speakers or justifying budgets or deciding on what topic to run next. So we've created something that makes it much simpler. Our annual wellbeing plan allows you to map out a full year of wellbeing support in just minutes, choosing from over 50 science-based topics that address the most common challenges organizations are facing. It starts at 6,000 plus facts, and that is for the whole year, and it is for an unlimited amount of employees. So if you'd like to explore that and what that could look like for your organization, drop us an email at office@beamtraining.co.uk or book a call with me using the link in the chat, which I will put in there in just a second. So I'm going to hand over to Leanne now to get started with the session.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Tom, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this session. So I think Tom mentioned right at the top of this that this topic is the topic that we have had most interest in. So we've sold out countless times on Eventbrite. We've had lots of messages about it. So I think the last time we checked, we were on 120 people that have signed up for it. And a lot of those people will be watching it in the replay. So it's definitely a topic that we are all interested in. So before I start, for anyone who is new here, People is actually run by Tom and myself, and we are part of BEAM Development and Training. deliver leadership, well-being, personal development training to organizations all around the world. We train in the UK, we train in Europe, Americas, APAC, and Asia. So we have been doing this for a very long time. And one of the things we noticed through the years that we've been doing this is we built really good relationships with the people that brought us in to support their staff. And what we saw over and over again was what we call the well-being paradox. Those people were so invested in their staff and they really wanted to bring us in to help and support them. But actually, they very rarely attended the training, the coaching, the workshops because they were too busy. So they were promoting well-being for everyone else, but actually they didn't feel that they had the time to look after themselves. And so it creates this well-being paradox where you're the people that are supporting everyone, but actually you're perhaps not looking after yourself first and foremost. So we set up people with that intention really to support those who were supporting everyone else, mainly because we got such good relationships and we just wanted to help. That's really grown over our 18 months that we've been doing it. We have a whole catalogue of workshops that you can access for free, and we don't charge for anything. So you can access them for free via the website. So we've done people sessions on all sorts of topics, from boundaries to emotional labor, stress, all sorts of things. So if there's something that you're struggling with as a people-centric person, we probably already have a workshop there for you. If not, then there's definitely more workshops lined up. We've already got the rest of this year fully booked. And if there's a topic you really want to see, then by all means, let us know. Drop a comment, jump on a call with us, and we'll have a chat with you and see what we can do. So let's get started with today. I will warn you that today I have struggled to condense what really should be a couple of hours workshop into the very short amount of time that we've got. So we're going to cover a few key things. Obviously, we're going to look at resilience in leadership. This is specifically for those people who are looking after other people. So if you're a leader in any way, you're in the right place. We're also going to then look at what resilient leadership is, and really importantly, what it isn't. So we'll know what to look for. We'll talk about the importance of regulation in leadership. We'll talk about things like emotional contagion and how the way that we lead actually dictates how the team will behave. We'll very briefly, because this is something that Tom and I deliver workshops on for days, talk about the 5 practices of exemplary leadership. It's our favorite leadership model. We do use a combination of different leadership models, but the 5 practices of exemplary leadership, if you've never come across it before, I think there will probably be a few books sold after I tell you about it today. It's definitely something I would encourage you to have a look at. And then we will end with you all making a commitment. So a commitment into being a more resilient leader. So let's get started. Who supports the supporters? If you're in HR, L&D, recruitment, leadership, coaching, people services, then the chances are you are a shock absorber for your organization. And when pressure rises, it will be all eyes on you. People will come to you asking you how you can support them. What do we do in this situation? And what that can do, which really links to our people theme, is it can cause us to experience compassion fatigue. It can really overload us with emotional load. It also can cause us to feel like we have to fake it all the time. And all of those things can actually really impact how we show up, how resilient we feel, and how everyone who's looking at us also responds. So I want to start this session with a little reflective question. And in the chat box, so you don't have to speak, but in the chat box, I want you to put your answer 1, 2, 3, or 4. So when you're under pressure in your role, what is your default response? Do you just put your head down and push on through? Are you someone that needs to talk to lots of other people and you need to gather lots of information? Do you withdraw and retreat and kind of go into your shell a little bit? Do you over function? Are you spinning so many plates trying to keep so many people happy? Okay, so we've got a nice combination here. I can see I'm definitely a withdrawer. I definitely go into my shell, put my head down and just retreat. Yes, three, then try for one. That's the same as me, Paul. A combination of them all, the apnea, 1 and 4. There's lots of over functioning going on here, which again doesn't surprise me with the roles that you're in. Hopefully, even just seeing this normalizes it a little bit, that we're all just trying to do our best. We're all just trying to get through whatever that challenge is. But also, I think it really points out that as a leader, when we're very aware that eyes are on us, we go into our default way of coping. And potentially, we might not be aware that that could be affecting our personal resilience, but also affecting how other people view us and how they respond as well. So let's have a little look at what resilient leadership isn't. Now, I've been teaching on resilience for at least 15 years. It's definitely one of my kind of core topics. And I predominantly love teaching personal resilience to begin with, and then going into resilient leadership. And the reason I do that is because actually, if I can look after myself first and foremost, then I'm much more likely to be a resilient leader anyway. Now, because we don't have a lot of time today, I can't go into all of the personal resilience. So I wanted to just make it really clear what resilience is and what resilience isn't. And resilience absolutely is not just saying yes to everything and keeping everyone else happy. Now, we've done sessions on stress before. We've talked about people pleasing as a stress response. That would not be resilience. It's also not putting everyone else before yourself. We've done a session on boundaries and we've talked about how actually, if I don't look after myself, then it's really hard for me to look after everyone else. It's also not just taking the punches. I can't tell you the number of times I've trained or coached people in significant roles who say, well, it's kind of part of the job. I've just got to take the punches. Absolutely, when we get to a certain level within an organization, we have more responsibility, more pressure. But taking the punches over and over again, there's something amiss. We need to change how we're dealing with things. It's also not never wobbling. Being resilient is not having all the answers. It's not being kind of this perfect demonstration of calm. Of course, you're going to wobble. Of course, there'll be challenges. Of course, there will be tricky times. It's also not struggling on that, pushing on through at the expense of your physical and or mental health. Again, resilience, stress, burnout, probably three of my kind of key areas of expertise within this field. And the amount of people I help through burnout are always ambitious. They're always really successful. They are always compassionate and empathetic. And as a result, they've kept on going, kept on pushing through and until something snaps, and that's their physical and or mental health. And it's not just coping. So often I ask people, how do you describe resilience? And they'll say, well, it's coping. Sometimes they'll tell me it's surviving. Now, to some degree, that is a level of resilience, but that's never the kind of resilience I want to teach. The kind of resilience I want to teach is actually that we thrive, that we go through those tough challenges and we come out a much better version of ourselves. We might be a bit battered, we might be a bit scarred, but actually, going through that challenge made me stronger. It taught me important lessons. It made me a kinder person to others. That's the kind of resilience we really want to harness in ourselves and then demonstrate to others. So, what resilient leadership is? So, it's having emotional agility. It's being okay with admitting this is stressful, this is difficult, I don't have all the answers, but it's being agile enough to also recognize that This isn't where I'm going to stay. This is just a phase that I'm in right now. It's also, and this is something we'll talk about quite a lot through this session, it's being able to self-regulate when under pressure. So this session really does follow on really nicely to the stress session that we've done before. It's about being able to regulate yourself so you're responding, not reacting, so that you're able to make sure that you are making the best decisions possible in the situation that you're in. And I've always loved this term. If you've ever come across the work of Eckhart Tolle essentially teaches mindfulness. His book, The Power of Now, was one of the top bestsellers on the New York Times bestseller list for years, largely because Oprah really sort of promoted him as well. And Eckhart Tolle talks about when we're in the present moment, 99% of the time, we can cope with whatever is thrown at us. It's when our mind either goes into the past or it goes into the future and it's trying to control them. That's when we start to struggle. And Eckhart Tolle says that most of our suffering is caused by us trying to control the past or the future. And if we can just accept the isness of a situation, then actually what we do is we keep ourselves in the present moment and we enable ourselves to stay calm, regulated, and make the best decisions for ourselves and others. So a really simple example of this is if you were rushing to a meeting and you got stuck in a traffic jam, then the isness of that situation is I'm in a traffic jam. But how you respond dictates whether that is going to be something that really causes you stress and suffering or something that brings you peace and calm. So I can be stuck in that traffic jam and be angry at myself because I didn't leave earlier. But I'd be angry that my children made me late because they were messing around before they went to school, worrying about the past. Or I can be in that traffic jam and I can be stressing about, oh, I'm going to be late for this meeting. What are they going to think of me? Is that going to impact my future relationship with this person? Really stressing about the future. Or I can accept the isness, which is I'm in a traffic jam. This is outside of my control. Now, how do I deal with it? That then opens up my brain's capacity to consider what decisions I have available to me. So I can make a phone call, I can put on a podcast, I can put on relaxing music, I can do some calm breathing. And accepting that isness is probably one of the most powerful tools that I use in my day-to-day life, because I'm someone who really, my brain loves to be in the past or the future. I have to work really hard to force my brain to be in the present. So accepting that isness is just being, okay, this is happening, now what? Building environments where others don't burn out. So being a resilient leader is really recognizing that I have an impact on the environment that other people are working in. And how do I want that environment to look? How do I want to demonstrate how they should use that environment? Am I a leader that consistently works through my lunch and therefore I'm encouraging others to do the same? Am I a leader that consistently emails at all times of the day and night and I'm encouraging others to do the same? So creating an environment that actually is healthy and prevents yourself and others from burning out is true resilient leadership. And I guess on the back of that, a resilient leader is someone who sets healthy examples. So it is taking the lunch break. It is acknowledging when you need help. It's acknowledging when you're under extra pressure or when you've made a mistake. That's true resilient leadership. So whether we realize it or not, when we are in a position of leadership, other people are looking at us to see how they should behave. And this quote here that I came up with sounds so simple and straightforward, but actually this really highlights how important it is that I look after myself and I become resilient in myself if I want that within my team. Because regulated leaders create regulated teams. So by proxy, what that means is dysregulated leaders create dysregulated teams. So when we're under pressure, which, let's be honest, is quite often, probably daily for many of us, then our nervous system shifts. We can become more reactive. We can become more narrow in our thinking. We might have less patience. We might get frustrated. Our communication, our tone can change. And lots of that happens without us even being that consciously aware of it. The problem with that is it never just stays with us, it spreads. So our teams are constantly picking up on our tone, our pace, our energy, even with the really small things. So if we're rushing around everywhere, our team will start to feel that pressure. They'll start to pick up that pace. If we're frustrated, our team will feel that tension. If we're unsure and unsteady in what we're saying, our team will feel unsure and unsteady too. But equally, the opposite is true. If we're leading with calm, and by the way, our next session is leading with calm clarity, nice little connection there. If we're leading with calm, then we'll create a sense of safety in our team. When we're communicating clearly, it creates confidence and trust. When we're grounded and we're kind of operating from our full selves, not just from our reactive selves, it creates a sense of stability for everyone else. It's not just a mindset thing either. It's not that they're consciously doing that necessarily, but it's how we're wired. You may have heard of something called emotional contagion. As humans, we are wired to co-regulate with other human beings. We tune into each other's moods and emotions, and we respond accordingly. So people don't just listen to what you're saying. In fact, they're listening to very little. What they're more likely to do is to do what you're doing. So if my emotion is really stressy, and I want you to think back to a boss you may have had over the years that's constantly really stressed and reactive, working for them causes you to be stressed and reactive. That's why resilient leadership has to start with regulation. We have to make sure we know how to calm ourselves in the face of challenge in order to be able to demonstrate resilience to our team. And it's not about being perfect. It's not about putting on a front. It's not about being able to handle everything, but it's about being able to steady yourself before you react, to respond rather than react. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of look first and foremost at 3 ways in which we can do that, because the steadier you are, the safer your team will feel. And ultimately, the more resilient both of you will be. So I want to share 3 really useful regulation tools. They might sound simple, but actually they become our starting point, our foundation stone to being a resilient leader. So the first is that you regulate yourself first. So no decision should come from dysregulation. And I want you to just pause for a moment, and I want you to think what dysregulation feels like for you. And while you're doing that, I'll give you some examples. So dysregulation could be that you just feel in your body that you're a little bit kind of buzzy and fast. It could be that you notice that you're over breathing. It could be that you notice that the tension and stress is rising in your body. Maybe your jaw clenches or your shoulders. It could be that you're really not focused. You're not able to concentrate. You're not in that present moment. So dysregulation causes us to only make our decisions based upon survival. So those of you who've ever come across the chimp paradox or my teachings on the stress brain, what you'll see is that when we feel intense stress, all of our decisions ultimately are about survival. So we're not making calm executive decision-making decisions. We're making survival decisions. How do I get out of this right now? And if we were in a physically threatening situation, that is amazing and it's so useful. But if we are dealing with work and more emotionally threatening situations, it usually forces us to make a decision that actually causes us more pain in the long run. So recognizing that right now I'm dysregulated, I can feel the stress, I can feel my thinking narrowing, I can feel myself becoming a bit short-tempered with other people. When you recognize that in yourself and you have the self-awareness to be able to tune into that, you then start to be able to move from that survival protection mode and you can switch into leadership mode. So regulating yourself is about giving yourself permission to pause so I can respond, not react. Even if it's just a couple of breaths. I mean, if you've done a lot of our training, you all know that we often get people to come back to the breath. It's the tool we always have with us. So coming back and just taking a breath a minute before I respond. Maybe it's making an excuse to say, I've just got to nip to the bathroom, but actually you're just buying some time to calm yourself down, to come back and be more in a regulated state. Because how you respond under challenge is what is going to shape the experience for everyone else. They're going to follow it. They're going to see, oh, they're starting to freak out. Maybe we should freak out too. The next tool is to make sure you protect your capacity. So this is a hard one when you're a people person, because as a people person, you naturally give to everyone else. You want to look after everyone and support people. But the problem with being a people person is there's often this unspoken rule, expectation that we should absorb everything. We should absorb everyone's challenges, their emotions, their pressure. But that's not realistic and it's not sustainable. So your role is not to carry everything. Your role is not to fix everything. Your role is to support, to guide and lead. And very importantly, without losing yourself in the process. So I need to make sure I'm taking my full self with this. So protecting your capacity probably includes having really clear boundaries. Again, we've got a workshop on that, so you can find out more in our library. It's about perhaps saying not right now instead of yes. One of the things I teach in the boundaries workshop is about creating stretchy boundaries. So maybe I'm not comfortable to say a flat no, but saying not right now buys me some time. And it's recognizing that in this moment, my capacity is this. And that will fluctuate. I talk a lot in workshops about kind of working with the energy of our body, of our brain, and being aware that that fluctuates and goes in cycles. So my capacity right here, right now might be huge. I can take on everyone's problems and I can really cope. But tomorrow I might not have that capacity. So be aware that your capacity fluctuates. So make sure you're protecting it, that you're not putting unrealistic demands on yourself. And then something that really goes hand in hand with burnout is make sure that you build in micro recovery into your day-to-day life and therefore into the culture of your organization. This is not the big, massive well-being initiatives that many organizations look at. This is the small, consistent moments that fit into every day that demonstrate that we care about people, we care about sustainability, we care about well-being. So we've shared things before where we've talked about the importance of taking regular recovery breaks. It comes from research from someone called Sean Acor, who was looking at people who were heading towards burnout. And what they found is that if someone took a 3 to 5 minute break every 90 minutes, which they termed internal recovery, then they were able actually to sustain a huge amount of pressure, huge workloads, without it costing their mental and physical well-being. The people who just felt like they didn't have time to take that break were all heading towards clinical burnout. And so one of the greatest tools we can do is demonstrate that to our team, that it's important that we take recovery. And micro recovery is literally 3 to 5 minutes. So that can be just walk into the furthest bathroom in the office. It can be making yourself a cup of tea. It can be gazing out of the window for 3 minutes. It could be listening to your favorite music and just sitting back for 3 minutes. Essentially anything that shifts your brain into a slightly different gear. When we demonstrate that this is good leadership, this helps me be a better leader when I give my brain the opportunity to shift gears. What we then do is we give other people permission to do the same. And there is a lot of fear in our culture that if I am not being productive all of the time, then I can't be doing my best work. But I have yet to see any piece of research that ever says if you just keep pushing and pushing and pushing yourselves, you'll get the best piece of work. I have read countless pieces of research that have said if you work to your peaks and rhythms, take a recovery break, work to your rhythm, take a recovery break, then you can achieve so much more. When we start to model these behaviors, we're giving everyone else permission to do the same. So rather than us thinking about resilience of I've got to push through, I've got to keep going, what resilient leaders really need to do is to work with a rhythm. It's not just about stamina. It's not just about pushing and pushing and pushing. It's about accepting that I have this rhythm that goes up and down. And then that creates the space for you and others to reset. So it's not just about enduring the challenge. Now, what I want to take this from too is what makes a really exemplary leader. And this, as I mentioned right at the beginning, is a huge piece of work. So this comes from the work of Kouzes and Posner. And Kouzes and Posner have researched around, well, last count was about 75,000 different people from all sorts of organizations on what makes an exemplary leader for years, years and years and years. And what they found was that an exemplary leader seemed to demonstrate the same characteristics every single time. And Kouzes and Posner have kind of packaged this up as the 5 practices of exemplary leadership. And they're beautiful. If you've never come across this and you're looking for a leadership model, it's a fantastic one to have. So the first one is that an exemplary leader models the way. This is exactly what we've just been talking about. An exemplary leader is the one who demonstrates how they want their team to be. So being the change that you want to see in your team, being aware of, do I react? Do I respond? Do I protect my energy? Do I set boundaries? Essentially, it's that you're walking the talk. Because when an exemplary leader does that, it creates safety. Now, this is so important in terms of resilient leadership because I'm modeling the way through the good times and the bad times. I'm showing people how I would like them to behave. The next is inspire a shared vision. So an exemplary leader will get others to buy into the vision that they have and get them included in creating it. So resilience will grow when people understand their meaning, when they understand what they're doing has a part to play in something bigger. When we as human beings have a sense of purpose, then we are so much more resilient. When we lack purpose, when we lack meaning, when we don't really know why we're doing something, our ability to stay motivated, connected, and resilient decreases massively. So if you're a leader that inspires a shared vision, you need to communicate clearly. You need to be what positive psychology calls a realistic optimist. So you are edging on the verge of optimism, but you're also realistic about the challenges that might be facing us. So it's not pretending that everything's fine, but it is holding hope and perspective. The third is they challenge the process. So credible leaders question the norm, not just to be disruptive, although sometimes that is helpful, but to improve things. Resilience really dies in a team that says, well, we've always done it this way, where there's no room for questioning, where it's just, this is how we do it. Challenging the process requires courage, clarity, and again, being in a non-reactive state. That it's okay for a team member to come to you and say, why do we do it this way? Maybe this idea that I've had could help us. So it's about being open to that flexibility. The fourth is enabling others to act. So a resilient leader, an exceptional, exemplary leader, will encourage others within their team to thrive. And I don't think there's any in this room, by the way, but we do not want to be the kind of leaders that are keeping people in their place and keeping them small. My very, very first job that I had within HR, it was a really good developmental role. But my HR director would get me to create projects of work for her to present to the board. And then she would take my exact words and then she would take my name off it and put her name on it and present it as her own work. That was not enabling me to act. It killed my motivation. It really made me doubt myself. That's not good leadership. So encouraging people to use their skills. We don't want to over manage people. We want some kind of delegation. We want to bring people in and be more collaborative. Otherwise, we kill their resilience. And then probably my favorite part of the exemplary leadership model is encourage the heart. This is such an amazing concept and actually the secret to Kouzes and Posner's model. It's about making people feel seen, heard, valued, celebrated. Recognition reduces stress load. When you have a manager that tells you, look, I know this has been challenging, but the work you've done has been just so powerful and helpful, it gives you that resilient boost. It creates belonging, it builds psychological safety. So I want us to just be really aware of what this looks like when we're under pressure and when we're trying to demonstrate resilience. So if we look at model the way, if I want to model the way, then here's 3 ideas that I can do that. So I pause before responding. Essentially, we never want to do reactive leadership. We want to do responsive leadership. I protect my energy, not just my calendar. This is a real game changer, especially for someone like me that tends to work on a real diary. It's recognizing that actually that meeting's going to drain me. It's a really heavy conversation I'm going to have for an hour. So even though it only looks like an hour meeting, I know that my energy will be really impacted for a few hours after that. So I need to protect that, not just the hour that I'm in the meeting. And to get better at saying no when you need. If you want to inspire a shared vision, remind people why what you're doing really matters. When we know the why, we are so motivated to keep going. Connect today's stress to the long-term vision. So get them to understand that, yeah, this is really challenging, but this is where we're heading. I think there's nothing harder than it just feeling like, well, we're never ending on this cycle and we never actually get to that goal. Try and avoid urgency without meaning. I was working with some clients last week and they said those famous lines that many of us have probably said, everything that comes across my desk is marked urgent. Everything's a priority. Well, the problem with that is when that happens, it starts to lack meaning. So let's make sure that we can really prioritize what needs to be done rather than bombarding our team with everything being urgent. Challenging the process, well, question those draining norms. Question why we're not taking our lunch break. Question why it's okay for everyone to have their lunch at their desk. Question why it's okay to have a culture where everyone works late. I delivered training several years ago to an organization and they booked me for 4:30 on a Friday afternoon because they had an issue with stress and burnout within the organization. I don't really need to paint the picture much bigger than that, but you can see just from that act, the culture that was being created in an organization. Question it. Remove an unnecessary pressure point. Maybe there's some kind of pressure point that doesn't need to be there. It's just because we've always done it. And stop tolerating what exhausts your team. Implement positive changes where you can. Enabling others to act. So delegate outcomes, not anxiety. I love that feeling. So we're not pushing our pressure onto someone else just to make ourselves feel better. We're delegating an outcome. Can you get this from B to C for me? And explain why. Trust in our team rather than trying to control. When we try and control, it's exhausting and it's a losing battle. Avoid over functioning. So avoid stepping into that where you're constantly functioning and delivering and setting unrealistic standards. And I encourage in the heart, notice effort, not just results. A lot of organizations are very focused on, hitting targets. And I get it, like that's such an important part. But sometimes we're not noticing the effort of perhaps the person who stepped in and given extra care to a client who was really struggling. It might not have meant that they hit another target, but actually that's just as important for the organization's reputation. Make your appreciation specific and be emotionally present. When people are talking to you, the worst thing we can do is be distracted looking at our phone or our laptop. So I am going to get you in the chat box to make a resilient leadership commitment. I want you to think about everything we've covered, and we've covered a lot, and tell me one thing that you're going to do more of to be a more resilient leader. What is the one thing you are going to do? And I'll give you a minute or so to do that. Because of time, whilst you're popping that in the chat box, I will just wrap up this session as well. But one thing you will do to be a more resilient leader. Thank you, Laura. So taking a breath before reacting. Practice what I preach, Nicola. Absolutely. If we could all do that, it changes us as leaders. Micro breaks and encourage them across the team. Protect your capacity. Pausing before I act. Yeah. Recognize effort, not just results. Honestly, Trish, that is a big, big one. Trust, not control. Determine. Absolutely. Culture is not just a HR job as well. And it's seen culture is every single person within the organization's job. So we can change the culture. Make sure I give myself time, protect my energy, not just my calendar. Yeah, that was a big one for me. Be in the isness. Beautiful, Charlene. Micro breaks. Praise effort. Absolutely. Connect. Absolutely. Wonderful. Okay. So resilient leadership doesn't just happen. It requires conscious effort. We need to step into this. One thing I'd love you to take away as a real kind of sticky point of this session is a dysregulated leader will create a dysregulated team. So it doesn't matter how good you think you're faking it. If you are dysregulated, your team will also be so. Bringing resilience into the practices of the exemplary leadership is a great starting point to see where you could start to create a real resilient leadership team. If you need more support and help on that, we can work with your organization to create some really exciting bespoke courses for that. And you've all made a commitment. Connecting before communicating, protecting your energy as well as your calendar, and recognizing the isness of the situation. I am going to hand over to Tom. I will stick around for any questions, but I'm aware that we need to wrap this up. So I will hand over to Tom for a second.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Leanne. Before we just end this session, so there's a few updates as well for future sessions. But first of all, today's session has been recorded and the resources and video will be emailed to you. They will eventually, by tomorrow, be up on the website as well, so you'll be able to access that directly through the People section. But if today's session has been useful to you and you think it would help your teams or leaders, then feel free to share this internally as well within your organization. We've also got some other people sessions coming up. I have put all of the links in the chat as well, so you can directly go through and pick whichever one you're available or register for all of them. So on the 1st of April, we've got a specialist guest session from Sally Sedini Wilkinson that is going to be talking about how menopause matters in the workplace. And then on the 14th, we've got our next People Lunch and Learn, which is Leading with Calm Clarity. That'll be delivered by Leanne. And then at the end of April, so we've got 3 running in April. On the 28th, we've got another specialist session from Simon Drinkwater, who's going to be taking us through the AI capacity conundrum. And with the change in AI and everything that's going on right now, especially around people services and programs that we can use to help us do our jobs, it will be a really beneficial session. So, and just briefly, if you're currently planning your wellbeing support for the year, our annual wellbeing plan again might be really helpful. So feel free to drop us a message. And if you are in South Wales or West England, then close enough, then you'll be able to come along to our People Power event, which is on the 26th of March. It's in Cardiff, and this session is going to be focused on all about recruiting with confidence. And we've got a panel of experts, which will be led by Acorn, by Synergy, and Confused.com. And they're going to be talking about what it really takes to hire well in today's labour market. So there is a link for the tickets. That is the only event that we do that is paid for as well. So that is a ticketed event. Everything else I've mentioned, though, is completely free, and all the replays, which is great. So Leanne's put up a slide now on if you need any more help or any more support, whether it's anything that's been covered in this session, or you just want to reach out and say, hey, that was brilliant. We love those emails too. Our details are on there. There's also a link that I put just a bit further up, so you can join the People Network group on LinkedIn as well. That is free. We are at the moment keeping it very private, so it will only be people that it's relevant to. So there's no bots or spam or anything like that.
Perfect. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you for all the lovely comments in the chat box.
What I'll do then is I'll just stop recording just in case